There's camera. Yin from Speech and Language Link to talk to us about their product. I have been privileged to have access to their product over the last couple of months, and I have been playing with it and I've tested it out on various children, and I currently have a couple of my apprentice TAs having a look at some of the materials in there, and we have all been impressed. There hasn't been anything where we've kind of gone, what's this, or how do I do that? We've all been really impressed with what we're seeing. So I'm delighted that Yin is here tonight to talk to you about speech and language needs, and I am going to pass over to her now. Can you get that bit right, Gavin?
Fab. Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to this session today. I'm Yin Collighan. I'm a specialist speech and language therapist at Speech and Language Link, and I'm here to give a broad overview of what is Speech and Language Link, why our company does what we do, and what our packages can do for you. And after I do the presentation, there's quite a lot to squeeze in, so hopefully I'll be able to go through it thoroughly enough, but yes, I'll be talking quite a bit, but afterwards I will be happy to answer some questions. And today I'm going to be going through the four different packages. So it'll be infant, junior, secondary, language link, and also our speech and speech link package as well. So let's go to the slides. Perfect, thank you. And we'll go to the next slide if that's okay. Thank you. Okay, so with there are many current challenges for SENCOs. With speech and language communication needs, this is the biggest need, and the percentage of children with these needs is increasing. So this graph here shows the percentage of children who've been identified as needing SEN support by type of need. And you can see here that speech, language and communication needs is the most common type of need at 25% for children with SEN support. So with 17.3% of all pupils under some form of SEN support in the UK, there are plenty of children within the SLCN category that need support. And furthermore, this figure is really growing. So I'm sure you've noticed the growth in number of children with special educational needs and disabilities, and it's likely we'll see this growth continue throughout the years. So what does this mean as a SENCO? A lot of work that you already do is with speech, language and communication needs. So it's with this subcategory of children, and some of which of these children will be seen by a speech and language therapist, perhaps maybe once, twice a term, maybe a little bit more, depending on the service limitations and their criteria. And others you may be using what you have to support them, but you possibly might be feeling that progress is really hard to measure, or you've been trying a whole range of different approaches, but you're not quite sure if those are effective or appropriate for the child, and you might feel that you might be returning to the same targets over and over again. So it's really important to get the support right so that we're meeting the needs of this rather large population. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay. Furthermore, speech and language skills are fundamental to lots of other important skills as well. So if we get our support right at the speech and language level, we can make a large positive impact for the child across the board. So what impact does speech, language and communication needs have on a child? So in these next slides, I'll be talking through some examples. So as you can see, there's an impact on the child's learning, so the attainment. Having a look at the quote, children who enter school with poorly developed speech and language skills are at a risk of educational underachievement. So that's Conti Ramsden et al. And Dockrell et al. As well. And with this, I mean, the risk of educational underachievement within speech and language communication needs population is really quite real, because it obviously plays a really vital role in learning. So how can a pupil make sense of what teachers are saying and demonstrate knowledge or ask for clarification if they're struggling with communication? And they're likely to get left behind year on year as language complexity increases. The other quote here by Snowling, early speech, language and communication difficulties are a very significant predictor of later literacy difficulties. So there's a big link between language and literacy and numeracy as well, with adequate spoken language skills being clearly a foundation for literacy development. So if you can't say or understand it, you wouldn't be able to read or write it. Can we go to the next one, please? Okay. So another way that SLCN can impact is on the child's behaviour. So there's some research which has shown that there's a strong link between behaviour and language development in children. So children with emotional and behavioural difficulties, such as emotional regulation difficulties, may also struggle with language development. Here in this literature review, so that's Benner et al.'s literature review, they have found that estimates have varied between approximately 40% to over 90% of children who have coexisting language difficulties and emotional and behavioural difficulties. So there's a big crossover with that population. Basically, with behaviour being a form of communication, speech and language and communication can become a barrier. So if there's any difficulties with that, that can become a barrier between being able to effectively communicate thoughts, feelings and desires, communicate with teachers and peers and demonstrate knowledge and so on. Okay, next slide. Okay. There's also an impact on the child's well-being. So Law et al. In their report have stressed the fundamental link between language and other social, emotional and learning outcomes, and feel that early language development is a primary indicator of child well-being. So as you can see with this one, children with language difficulties at age 5 were 4 times more likely to have reading difficulties in adulthood, 3 times as likely to have mental health problems, and twice as likely to be unemployed when they reached adulthood. So there can be really long-term impacts. So it's really vital that we get the support right for this group of children, that we're meeting these children's needs. So supporting speech and language development will have a knock-on positive impact on learning, behaviour and well-being. And furthermore, in schools, large numbers of children with these needs are being missed and incorrectly categorised, because with language being such a hidden difficulty, us therapists tend to get lots of referrals, for example, for speech, social communication, that sort of thing, but not as many as we would actually expect for language itself. The truth is that with children with verbal language needs, as much as that's the highest primary need, as mentioned before, there are plenty more that are unidentified. So in Burko's report, around 40% of children with speech, language and communication needs are still being missed. And these may actually instead be seen as more overt behaviours, such as difficulties with attainment, behaviour and wellbeing, as I've mentioned, which teachers and TAs may well be tackling on a day-to-day basis. But in many pupils, this is secondary to the root cause, which may be that speech and language, those speech and language difficulties. So what we have from our company is this wheel with the vast need and impact and shortage of therapists. What inspired us to create this group of packages, this package family. We also have CPD as well. So we have a kind of wide-ranging product family, which includes the assessments, interventions, reports analysis, so those can be instantaneous, alongside some information for parents and some homework for parents, a way to measure outcomes and show progress. And we also have help desk support too. So our packages are there to enable you to screen so that children with these needs are not missed or misidentified. So this can kind of reduce the worries about not being able to fit as many children as you'd like into the kind of quite typically limited therapist time. The packages can triage those who have typical speech and language skills, those that can be seen by yourself, and those that need more specialist support, so that the therapist will be there for the children that need that level of specialism. So as you can see, do you mind going back one? Sorry, Gavin. Thank you. So as you can see from our wheel, we have the speech link package, the language link packages. So there's the 3 there. We also offer training as well. So we've got the Link Live Twilight sessions, 3 per year in primary, 3 per year for secondary, which are free to schools that are bought into our packages. And this is shared knowledge from different experts to enhance your school's knowledge of speech language communication needs. We also have the Link magazine, which you probably have seen. So those get sent out to every school now in the UK. So all the primary schools, and we've got a new one that goes out to all secondary schools. We've got information and videos in our parent portal that you can access if you're a subscriber. And also we have our training offer, which is Link CPD, which I personally really love. We work alongside the participants on the course, give them feedback. It's all done remotely. And then they go through videos and activities to learn more about speech and language and to apply things within the classroom. Okay, so I'm going to talk about SpeechLink now. This is our first package and the only one of its kind widely available throughout the UK. So the SpeechLink package contains all of these features. So there's a screening tool for developmental speech difficulties, which is done on the computer. It has complete tailored programs and resources, so complete plans, which are really simple for TAs, LSAs to run with lots of great activities as well. There are some online booster games as well. So these are carried out on the computers and they're really engaging. And then parent programs for homework for those keen parents, and also some simple to follow training so you know how to use the package, and there's some background around speech as well. So going into the assessment in detail, SpeechLink is for 4 to 8 year olds, and it assesses speech production skills and can be used to flag up. So when the assessment is carried out, it can recommend those with who have more significant needs. So it can kind of say which students need that specialist support from a speech and language therapist. It also identifies those with the common speech difficulties and tells you what you should be working with. So the assessment covers all consonant sounds in the first position of the word and the last position of the word. So from the assessment, it will say which programs are right for the child. It's really quick and easy to follow and really engaging for the child. It takes 15 minutes. And if you can, with this screen, you can see a cat. And what the child would do during the assessment is look at the picture and say what it is. And then you would be listening out for, in this one, the first sound. So you can see the prompt on the left-hand side. What is the first sound that the child says? And you'd click on the option of what you hear. So it's really, really simple to demonstrate. Going on to the next bit, after you do the assessment, you can get the results and you can see the information here. So there's a SpeechLink total score, which you can, when you do a retest, you can compare the scores there. You can see the recommendations in the big box. So for this one, it says to discuss the child with your local speech and language therapy service. And this really helps you to triage. So some might say, do these speech programs, and others might say, the child is performing as expected for their age. On the left side, you can see which speech sounds are established and which ones haven't established as yet. And then intelligibility ratings can be completed as well to establish the baseline. So you can measure progress against these, which is really useful for reporting to the leadership team. So what's the intervention like? All programs follow the same structure. So it's a really nice, clear format of 7 steps, going from listening to sounds all the way to putting sounds in words in sentences, then to generalization. There are 2 modules of training. So the inbuilt training has 2 modules. So there's background training about, the background speech. and package specific, so how to work the package, how to run the interventions, and you'll see how-to guides throughout the package itself, and also some introductory guides as well at the start, so you can watch those. Lots of PDFs as well to explain things if you just need to kind of pick up and go. Some if you need a little bit of information, that's quite a good way to access it. There's also over 400 printable resources as well, so massive bank of printable resources. So everything's basically in there, so you can basically run the intervention really easily. So this is part of the intervention. So these are some online listening games, and there's 5 different levels to encourage phonological awareness skills, which are fundamental to literacy. And this could be appropriate for the whole class to be using. So the games are really lovely and engaging, and it's a really good way to bump up those skills. So that's one kind of intervention. The other one is a kind of run-through package with the 7 different steps. And for parents, we have some home-based activities, and there's also some information to support their understanding of their child's needs and how to work with them, which is really ideal for those parents who are really, really eager, keen to get involved, or maybe even those really anxious parents that, call or pop in to know what you're doing with the children. There are letters that can be sent out to explain that sort of thing, so they're really easily printable or emailed across the parents. So they can kind of get involved if they want to. Lovely activities that really suit kind of the home environment, so they can use the things that they have as well as use the resources that we would supply alongside the activities. So that's SpeechLink. And I'm going to move on to infant and junior language link now. So these packages are to do with language rather than speech sounds. So SpeechLink was to do with the speech sounds, and these ones are to do with language. So I'm going to be talking about these first of all, and then I'll talk about secondary language link afterwards. So similar to SpeechLink, the assessment and there's assessment and intervention, and it's backed up with support and training from ourselves. So you can have the support from the help desk and call them, and they can guide you through things. So things as simple as, if you've forgotten your PIN, or even things like, you're not quite sure what to do next, then that can go to the help desk, and the therapy team can back up the help desk as well. So if it's anything more specific and needs this speech and language type of expertise, you can contact help desk, who can transfer across to us. So with the assessment, going on to the next slide. So with the assessment, Infant Language Link is used, so I'm going to start with Infant Language Link. It's used to screen universally in reception to make sure that no one is missed and intervention can take place as early as possible. EAL children, so English as an additional language, can be marked as such, so recommendations are different for them. Infant Language Link is a standardised assessment, standardised on children from 4 to 8 years, which means it's gone through rigorous testing to ensure that you can use it to compare scores of the children with one another, with their age groups, so it gives you a standard score. And the assessment builds an individual profile for the child, showing areas of difficulty and strengths, and things like, as I mentioned, standard scores and percentile rankings as well. And the information can be viewed across the whole class, year or school. And in year 1 or year 2, children who have been identified as having difficulties can be assessed with an annual assessment to see where they are and what to do next. So you wouldn't be doing the entire screening again. You'd be picking up those children that were flagged up in the initial screen. So going on to the assessment itself for Infant Language Link, the format is really simple. So the screening itself takes around 20 minutes to enable a wide profile of important skills to be investigated. So the procedure is that the adult sits with the child at the computer and has control of the mouse. Instructions are read out in a human voice via the computer, so kind of just setting the scene of what needs to be done in the assessment. And then the child hears a prompt. So for this one, who has the most will be the human voice coming out from the computer. And the child would then point to, hopefully, the picture that corresponds with the prompt, or point to whichever picture that the child thinks it might be. So here, the correct answer would be the middle picture, and then the adult would click on that one. So children are screened on the key areas of understanding that can be seen on the right. And there's kind of various different modes of the assessment. So some things will look a bit like this, other things will look slightly differently, but they're all fairly similar with very similar procedures as to carry them out. So similarly, with the Junior Language Link assessment, this one is 20 minutes. Now, Junior Language Link is suitable for obviously junior aged children, so 7 to 11 years, and universal screening will take place in year 3 or 4. And then again, those identified with difficulties can be tracked with the annual assessment. It's 20 minutes, as I said, and it can potentially be done in groups for really, really sensible children, which can save some time. And as mentioned before, with the format, it's very similar to Infant Language Link. You'll have the instructions and then the prompt. Here, Dad is going to make a sandwich, and the child will point to the picture that answers the prompt. And they're screened on the areas on the right-hand side. There's different questions and areas to the infant one, so it's kind of that higher level. Okay, so just having a look at how results are presented. So following the assessment. So when the assessment's completed, you can view the pupil card. So this is a pupil card, and they're all in the same place. So whichever package that you're subscribed to, you'll see all the information in the same place. So inside the pupil card, as mentioned, you can view anything that's happened for the pupil. It will show the most recent assessment results and the current recommendations from whichever package you're subscribed to. So you can view the class strategies recommended to support this pupil, which is in this little, let's see, the little button, the one with the blue writing in that main box. And you can view the most recent assessment responses in detail. So if you click on the left-hand side, there's view responses. And you can also have a look at the pupil's individual report and provision map, and I'll talk more about that later. So as you can see, this child is in red, and the recommendation is for a referral. So children are colour-coded with red for severe language needs and blue for mild to moderate, and then you have like the black, which is they're performing at typical as expected. So that's what you have for infant and junior language link. So it's easy to see the results at a glance. Sometimes with some of the reports, you have the children listed, and you can see their names in different colours. It makes it really easy to know what proportions you have in the class. You can also put EAL as an identifier for certain children so that the programme will take it into account in its recommendations. So I've talked about the assessment and the results, and I'm going to talk about the intervention. So our interventions follow the whole school approach as recommended by Public Health England. So looking at this diagram, all students benefit from support via Tier 1, which is the universal level of intervention, including training and whole class strategies. I'll talk about the strategies now. So on to the next slide. There are some core strategies. Those are the ones. And these are a range of techniques in an easy to remember format. So they have those sub strategies, and then they've got the main strategy there. And what they do is support adaptive teaching at the universal level. So as you can see to the left, there's the core strategies, and then to the right, the sub-strategies. And these really benefit children within the classroom, particularly those with speech, language, and communication needs. And we provide training for these strategies as well as resources, so you can use the resources within the classroom to support them. So the next slide will show you the classroom resources. So here's some examples of the resources that we have to support the children in the classroom. So things like listening cue cards, you can see in the right-hand corner. And also there's some things like prompts that children can use to demonstrate if they're struggling with what you're saying. So they can be very specific. And there are ways in the discussion skills and also within the task template of helping the child to structure their language. So when they have something to say, they can use it as a prompt to help them structure what they say. So plenty of these. There's just a handful. There are plenty more of those. Okay, going on to tier 2, which is the targeted level. So targeted level of interventions. This includes those who are in small group interventions alongside a boost for those of the groups. So in the small group interventions who would benefit from the additional boost via supplementary teaching. So the programme would flag up those children who need to be in small groups and they fit within these targeted interventions. And this is something that you can do within the school. So going on to the next slide. Okay. So it's really easy to set up your groups, and you can select those that are recommended that are indicated by the assessments. And any that you may feel, even though they've come up as within normal limits, you can kind of pull them in if you feel that they could do with a little boost there. Progress can be recorded online, so this is how progress can be recorded just here. And all resources are included for the group, so the package is kind of self-sufficient. You don't need. There might be some potential little bits and pieces that you can find really easy in the school, but all the kind of paper stuff is there. It can be laminated, printed and laminated, and then kept in a folder to be taken out when you need it. So I'm going to talk about the group sessions next. So in the sessions in more details, each group has 8 planned half-hour sessions, and these usually run across a term, but can be longer or more intensive depending on the children. So it really can be quite flexible. So we would recommend groups of around 4 children, and these can be kind of the reds and blues and any that you feel would be appropriate. So it's good to have that mix. Groups are once a week. You could have them 2 times a week. 2 times a week is more ideal, but once you'll still have an impact. And as mentioned with the resources, they are provided in the package, downloadable. Won't matter if you lose them, and they can be replaced easily with no extra costs from ourselves. And then if you look at the left side, the groups in reception are more general, so it'd be listening in general groups. And then in year 1 and 2, they're more specific, so they kind of really drill down to those children's needs. So the general ones will touch on the different areas, but it's more kind of mixed into it really. So there's lots of different things that can be worked on. I'm going to be talking about the supplementary teaching, which is for children who need a little bit of extra practice following a group. So let's say that the child has struggled somewhat in the group or not quite getting it right at times, or if you really feel that actually, they haven't quite consolidated it that way, they would really benefit from this supplementary teaching. So it's an extra bit of practice. And there are different plans per year, all following the same format. Basically what it is, it's a bit like precision teaching. So it'll be little and often, about 14 sessions of 10 minutes that are done within the classroom. So yeah, like precision teaching. These things, there are pre-intervention tests there's like a pre-intervention test available at the start to establish a baseline, and then you'd set a target for expected progress and then use the described activities, and then use a post-intervention test to measure progress. So that's all within the supplementary teaching. So reports and provision maps are available at a range of different levels and can be really useful to provide to Ofsted, governors and other members of the senior leadership team. So there's different levels of information, but these correspond to what is needed. So you can pull things off at pupil level, class level. For the entire year group, you can choose particular classes, have phase level or whole school level. So there's different levels of information and they're summed up in different ways. For parents, if parents want to do some extra work at home, we have the parent portal, which I mentioned before, and there's loads of resources and information that parents might find useful. And there's some linked resources as well to the work that's being carried out in the groups for parents to carry out between groups if they wish to. As I said, really useful for those eager parents, so it's nice. Okay, so that's infant and junior language link. I'm going to talk about secondary language link now. So it's suitable for Key Stage 3, which is 11 to 14 years, Year 7 to Year 9. And the universal screening is carried out in Year 7. And the great thing about this screening is that it's designed for group administration. So each student has their own PIN and can complete the assessment under invigilation as a big group. So we recommend 12 per adult. So I'm going to talk about the secondary language link assessment. Now there's two parts. So the first part looks at core understanding skills, so core language understanding. And then it also looks at the understanding of social language. So if we go to the next one, this is the core one, that's the social language one. So with the social language one, there are videos and multiple choice questions sandwiched in as well. So it's quite a unique style of assessment. It's not with our speech and language assessments as therapists, with our language ones, the secondary, they often follow a very similar format to what you see in the younger years, and so they can be quite a little bit dry maybe for the secondary pupils. So it's nice to have these videos. It kind of gives it a bit more engaging for the older pupils. I'm going to talk about the training. So as part of the universal level, so we're thinking about tier 1, the Speech Language Communication Needs Inclusion Toolkit includes some really fantastic online training videos to improve inclusive teaching. So training here aims to enable pupils with SLCN better access to the language of the curriculum in order to raise attainment. And it's really suitable for all subject teachers who deliver whole class teaching. So there are two parts to it. There's part 1, which is the role of language and communication in the context of learning and socialising, which may also benefit TAs and LSAs as well. And there's also part 2, which is great for the educational practitioners with responsibility for whole class teaching. So there's 2 different parts of that. The toolkit benefits schools as it promotes the importance of communication skills, specifically the role of language and communication in the context of learning, socialising, and making the transition to independence, which is really appropriate for secondary schools. And it also allows for auditing teachers' knowledge as well. So you can have a look and see which skills the teachers have, the strengths, and which areas might need to be developed. So you can use it to think about what further training might be appropriate. Potentially, if you see, for example, the Twilight Link live sessions, you might think, oh, actually, that's a really good one for my teachers because they could do with a boost in this area. And it also highlights the impact of communication difficulties on other areas. So part of the training lets the teachers think about communication difficulties and the impact it has on a range of different areas, which gives a kind of depth of understanding of needs as well. So children could be more easily identified, or at least if you see a behaviour or see something, then there'll be that thought that potentially it's not behaviour, it's language. Thanks. So our language groups cover lots of different language areas, and there's a real good focus on functional language skills as well as language structure. And each group has 8 planned sessions, and each session is designed to be delivered within a lesson, so it's 45 minutes. And the groups can run across a term, but can be longer or more intensive depending on the children. So there's a lot of flexibility in how the groups can be run. The resources are all provided, so they're downloadable, and also there are some video, and also it's presented as video based, which encourages discussion and collaboration between the students. So when you have the groups and they're watching the video and they have to solve a problem, maybe they can all talk together, and there's been lots and lots of positive feedback from students themselves about that. This aspect. They've really, really enjoyed the activities here, and we get lots of feedback to our help desk. So progress can be measured through pre and post skills checks before and after each group. So an important skill at this age is for students to learn their own strategies. So students will fill in a communication card during each group session. And this mentions strategies they have attempted and what they find hard and what things help them. So they'll be completing this card, and it'll prompt them to think about what they've found useful and what they've found difficult to be using within the session. This can then be shared with the class teachers so they know how to help the student. Next slide, please. And once the group is completed, so that all the sessions are completed, a communication contract is made. And this is aimed towards the students explicitly thinking about how to use skills and strategies that might help them in the classes. So at the end of all the sessions in the group, the adult would then discuss this with them and consider how the strategies they've used can be carried forward into their classroom environment. So subject teachers can sign it to demonstrate their agreement that that staff member will help the student by the use of certain strategies. So this can be shared widely. So that's basically it. I actually got through it a lot quicker than I thought I would. So if there's any questions, that'll be good. I think I'll also mention that there is a free trial. So if you go onto our website, then you can find that somewhere along there is the free trial. So if you maybe click into one of the packages, scroll down, there'll be a little kind of box for a free trial, and then you can sign up there, or you could call our help desk instead. So there's a couple of different options there for you. So I hope that made sense, but if you do have any questions, please ask. Okay. I could hear you.
Yeah, there you go. Now they
Brilliant.
can hear you as well.
Everybody can hear me now. That was lovely, Yin. Thank you very much. It was nice to kind of have that overview of everything, because of course I work with every age group, so being able to look at all those different levels is fantastic. We're going to let people have a couple of seconds to type any questions, preferably into the Q&A, guys. It's much easier for us to copy and paste from there. I have got one already, which was, could you please repeat the role of speech and language therapy in the development of literacy skills? What's the role of speech and language within literacy development?
Okay, so the important thing is that with language, there's lots of different layers that develop, so that it forms the foundation of literacy. As I mentioned before, if you can't understand it or say it, then you won't be able to read or write it. Basically, literacy is the more kind of man-made version of communication. So you have to be able to understand the words, as you can tell with young children when they're learning language. It will be that spoken language and the understanding of language, and then after that, that enables literary skills to be kind of hung on to what they already know from that. So it forms the foundations of literacy. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me, yes. I'm sure it will to the other person. They'll tell us in a moment. Do you want to ping that other one up on the screen, G? Fantastic. So this person says they're coming to it as a secondary teacher, but wondering if there is a way to support primary schools to help pupils before they reach us.
Well, I mean, it's nice when there's the primary schools using the packages as well, which is really great. There are some things within the secondary package where you can use that as kind of transitioning materials. I'm not entirely sure if there's anything specific, and that's something to ask help desk if you want to give them a call, that has something from the primary to the secondary. But I do know that we have the Aiming High group, which is absolutely fantastic to teach those kind of, this is secondary school, this is the kind of thing you'll kind of, this is the kind of vocabulary you'll have to learn, and this is what you have to kind of get used to. These are things to be familiar with, and it's a really lovely kind of transition when you get into the school. It's a really lovely package group to support the transition progress.
Brilliant, thank you, Yin. I think they're typing, they're warming their fingers up. Everybody's hands are cold today. So we'll give them a couple of seconds more to see what else we've got coming up there. I think it's just really interesting that there is actually something out there for secondary, because I mean, I call myself a generalised specialist. I never really had a specific area. I'm not dyslexia, I'm not speech and language, I'm not SEMH, I'm not any one of those. I'm a bit of everything.
You're a SENCO?
I'm a SENCO, yeah. SENCO, wear every hat going. But I wasn't a SENCO with a specialism. And I certainly think that speech and language was something I didn't know a lot about. And it's more than 25 years ago now, it's probably nearly 30 years ago, when I very first took on that kind of role and that responsibility, speech and language to me was the kid with the stutter or the kid that couldn't say their R's properly. It wasn't this wider understanding. And I think we still have a whole group of teachers, not necessarily SENCOs, but teachers coming through who probably still have that mindset that speech and language difficulty is the kid that can't say things properly, as opposed to what it actually, it's much wider than that, isn't it? It
really is. I mean, it's funny because it really is very fundamental to, the language side of things is actually a foundation to the speech, those speech sounds. And language is really the big focus, especially understanding of language, because without understanding, it's really hard to say what you want to say. And if you can't really do that as well, then, you might struggle with those speech sounds too. So there's all these different layers, and language is so important in itself, but it's so easily missed, as I mentioned. I mean, 40% of children, aren't identified, and that was in the Burko report.
I heard a quite scary statistic the other day. Is it's 70% of the prison population possibly has an underlying speech and language need, which is equally terrifying, but also possibly explains some of their behaviours that meant they ended up there.
Absolutely. I mean, we have speech and language therapists that now work in PRUs, and there's, we're working alongside the kind of prison system, and there are lots of unidentified speech and language difficulties there. And, the therapists come along, do their assessments, and they find a range of different issues. So unfortunately, it's really quite late, and hopefully in the future these things will be identified a lot quicker. And it's really great that we're able to kind of build awareness that actually don't just look at behaviour as its own thing. It's really important to think about, what might be leading to this behaviour, what kind of barriers there are to communication that can cause, these sorts of issues.
Definitely. We've got another one pinging up for us.
We'll ping it straight
Great.
I don't know, I can't read it from here.
up. Okay.
So, also in a secondary, want to know if there is a way to identify a support system to help pupils with specific language, specific learning difficulties. It's been a long day. That can transition into secondary, because by the time some students get there, the gap is quite wide and there is only a short time before they go into the GCSE preparation stage. I'm not sure whether this person means SPLD as in specific learning difficulty, as in what we would call dyslexia or dyscalculia, or whether they do mean speech and language difficulty. Perhaps they could just clarify for us in the chat. I would hope they're talking speech and language difficulty is what it is. Speech and language, there we go then. So, should we try that again? In a secondary, want to know if there's a way to identify a support system to help pupils with speech and language that can transition into secondary, because by the time they get there, the gap is quite big and there's only a short time before they go into the GCSE prep stage. I would say buy speech language link and use the secondary materials, because they are actually quite good. They are really impressively quite good. Yin?
Yeah, I mean, I think this feels like a similar question to the one before around transitioning. Yeah. So, as I mentioned, the aiming high is good, but I would definitely chat to help desk about what there is for that kind of transition process. So, sorry.
No, it's fine. Sometimes we have a bit of repetition in things. Everybody's typing and don't see what other people have written. And they're not listening and typing at the same time sometimes. And we've got a thank you there as well. We've got another one popped up, G. Oh, give us a second.
You have to give me a second to copy and paste.
Yeah, the help desk are amazing. They've got really kind of in-depth knowledge as to exactly what is in there, because they've been answering so many questions. We get loads and loads of questions to them, and they're such a friendly team as well, so they're happy to answer anything.
Definitely. Okay, zoom in, zoom out. I previously had children in our preschool group who were first described as reluctant talkers and then received a diagnosis of selective or situational mutism. At what stage do speech and language diagnose this or label this?
So this is a more general, question around selective mutism. So I think there's different pathways really in different services. Some children would go through to CAMS depending on what the background is. It's something worth talking to the therapist themselves about that particular child's profile. And then there can be assessments that are done. So looking at their understanding of language, seeing if there might be other underlying difficulties, talking through things with maybe the parents and the staff, and then just kind of seeing whether or not, they could be classed as having selective mutism, but it is diagnosed. It is later. It's worth talking to the therapist about that.
Actually, I was talking to one of my TAs the other day, and they've got a child in their school who is now year 9, who up until midway through year 7 would talk to people and would talk to people within school, and then towards the end of year 7 started to get a bit quieter. Year 8 was still talking to odd people. Year 9 has come back, will not talk to anybody at all in school. So it's an interesting one, isn't it? It's based around anxiety as opposed to a speech difficulty. It's
classed as a phobia, really. So there's much more than just, some people might think actually this child doesn't want to talk, is being quite defiant, but actually no, it's a proper phobia, and it's really good to get some great understanding behind it and share that with the teachers and things like that, so they know how to approach it.
If anybody has got children with that, the Smira website is actually quite good for advice. So SMIRA. My ed psych had us blowing feathers across the table to see if they would actually make something come out of their mouth, as in just breath, but also playing musical instruments. So will they make a noise with blowing into a recorder or a kazoo or something like that, or one of those party popper things that shoot out and make that horrible noise? But is it the phobia of them making a noise, or is it their own voice they don't like? So they're just a couple of things to explore, perhaps.
Yeah, good first steps, really. There is I'm just trying to remember the name of it, the Selective Mutism Resource Manual.
Yes.
Yes, and that's really good. It's purple, as far as I remember, and it has the steps that you can go through. What a therapist would do is to start with the assessments and that sort of thing, and then they would be overseeing the process. So there'd be a key worker involved who would work directly with the child, and then the therapist would typically oversee it. Sometimes, as I say, it can go to the referral can go across to CAMS depending on what the needs look like and what the background history is as well.
Absolutely. Have we got any more lurking, G? Or are you trying to find the Smira website?
What was the resource called?
The resource was called. It is called the Selective Mutism Handbook, isn't it? I think it is. Yin's going to type it and find it.
Resource manual. So it's Winkins and Maggie Johnson. Maggie Johnson's big name in our field.
Yep.
Yeah.
There you go. So Gavin will find it and paste it in the chat for everybody. If anybody has any other questions, you've got a chance to throw them in, though.
Oh, what about Magic Johnson? How did that change?
Did I share the contact details for us?
I think you did. Is it on the last slide, G?
Is it on the last slide?
Possibly. Bring it up.
Let me just order me about, why don't you?
Oh, and then the next one. There we go. Yep. So yeah, there's the help desk. So you can email them or you can call them. And then the doctor support site is how you access the package, and the .info is where you get some information about the packages. So if you want to find out more information that way, then that's what you can do. We also have some impact studies as well. So if you want to see the studies that have happened so far on our evidence base, you'll find that in the packages. So just kind of scroll down and find impact studies and have a good read. It comes up. There's some really good stuff there. Currently, we're doing a project with the EEF. I don't know if some of you might have heard of what we've been doing. So this is a nationwide project. We're currently at which stage are we at? We're at the groups have been randomized. The groups have been randomized, so the schools have been randomized, and then we've got our control group, we've got an intervention group, and we're currently working with the intervention group at the moment. So that's all very, very exciting. So that's going to go across this academic year.
Phone back on. See? I know.
It's a speech and language one. It won't let me speak. It's great. Thank you for that, Yin. That was really useful. The Smira website is apparently down at the moment, but I'm sure it will be back up. It's not normally down, so... although we've had a certificate error on our site recently, so I'm not sure whether it's something going round. It's in the air. Everybody needs to renew things.
COVID for computers.
Yeah, that's it. COVID for computers. Excellent. So let's see if anybody else has any other questions. And if they don't come through in the next 30 seconds or so, we will let Yin escape for her dinner. Gee, what have we got coming up over the next couple of weeks? Because you've moved me a bit of paper and I can't see it.
I'm really sorry.
Thank you.
We have... Next week.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on. Let me turn my microphone on. Hi, everybody. This is me on my microphone. Yes. Next week we have Tom from Burkitt Long. Legal session, which you can all book onto, and he is doing a Q&A on everything you need to know. So just come along and give him lots of questions because we love Tom.
And it's free advice.
Then on the 30th of November, we're actually off. We were going to do a wine and wine. We're not sure we're ever going to do that. And then on the 7th of December, We have Nick Late doing the JCQ update, which everybody wants to come to and will need to know because there's something about Form 8s and Form 9s.
Form 8R and Form 9s for your JCQ access arrangements. Mainly applies to those of you in secondary, but Nick Late has actually agreed to come along and answer your questions as well. So lots of free advice being given out there that normally you either have to pay for a very expensive session or a conference to go to, or you're paying £120 an hour to a solicitor. So do hop into them. And of course you've had a free session tonight for speech and language support, which you're that side, not the. There you go. Get my hands the right way around. There we go. Any others then? Nobody else.
No one. Everybody wants to go and get the dinner.
They do.
Fish and chips.
Costa have started serving the Black Forest hot chocolate again.
Oh, I like that one.
I like the Black Forest hot chocolate. I'm going to have to go and get another one. Sorry, guys. Anyway, Yin, thank you so much for tonight. If you'd like to stay on for a couple of minutes. Thank you to everybody for joining us. And do hop along and join us for our other sessions. And if you haven't booked yourself onto the Sensible 24 conference on the 9th of February, get clicking that button, get your order in, get your ticket before they all sell out. Yin, that side, is also coming along to it to do a little bit of a presentation there as well and do a bit of a dual team with Anne Harrod, who you all know as well.
I was just about to say that. Dual team with Anne Harrod, yes.
It's
going to be great.
Turn me into a duck.
I wouldn't turn you into a duck.
Brilliant.
Okay, guys, take care and we'll see you all soon.
Bye.